My name is Kimani, and welcome to Becoming Her, where I am going to be documenting my journey, more vulnerability as I become the woman of God that the Lord has called me to be. And so before we start this video, if you guys can like, comment, and subscribe, and also hit the bell so anytime that I post a video, you guys will get a notification. So let's get this video started. So I was trying to figure out like exactly what I should talk about today, because I'm not gonna lie guys, like this week has been extremely hard, and I was gonna talk about like what I was feeling, but I wanted to talk about what the Lord has done in my life. And so today I really wanted to talk about sorry, I really wanted to talk about my testimony of how I got my own apartment. Not even how I got my own apartment, but how the Lord moved me out of my mom's house into my own apartment. And so I'm going to be talking about that. And so basically how that whole thing started was, I had always dreamed of moving out of my mom's house. I had this whole idea in college, right? So if I don't know if anybody's like me, where like you plan your entire life out and then suddenly things happen, God starts removing things that you planned, and it's like God just basically tears up your whole plan so that his plan can get done. And so it was kind of like how that happened with me in a way. Not in a way, that did happen to me. If you guys watched the first video I shared a bit of my testimony, but I'm gonna also share a little bit of it here. Sorry y'all, I had Chick-fil-A today, so. But basically what happened to me was, so after college I had decided that I was going to move down south to Virginia specifically to go to grad school, and then I was going to move out of New York, get my mom, my brother, and my sister out of New York, because we lived in the projects in New York City. And it's rough living in the projects. It's rough living in New York City in general, but living in the projects is a whole nother level. It's just a whole nother level. And I had lived in the projects for about 10 years, about 10, 12 years. And I had always dreamed of like, moving out into my own home, buying a home for my mom. And it was crazy because I always had this idea of buying a home for my mom, but I never thought about where I would be going. So I guess in my mind, maybe somewhere deep in that plan, I intended on staying with my mother. But my first like agenda was buying my mother a home, not even considering where I was gonna be laying my head. But that's a whole nother story. But I, graduated college in 2022, and then I moved down with my grandparents to stay with them while I pretty much got a job, started school. So I pretty much had this whole plan set up. I had moved out of the projects, quote unquote, and I moved out, and I was gonna go to school, get my degree, and then once I got my degree, I was gonna get a house and move my mom out here, my brother and sister. It was a whole thing. Long story short, I got baptized, I dropped out of school, I quit my dream job, I moved back home with my mother in the projects. This is crazy how the Lord works. But yeah, so moving out for me was like a huge thing for me. Especially because, I see my mom work really hard to provide for me, for my brothers and my brother and my sister. So I wanted to take that load off of like being able to move out on my own, do my own thing, but also not having to feel like my mom had to like take care of me for a long time. Just like, I guess it's like a weight off a shoulder kind of thing. Like I just wanted my mother to not have to worry about, providing for me or anything like that. Especially after I graduated college, I had this whole idea that I was gonna have the job, the money, all these things. So when I moved back home after I got saved, it took a toll on me, like heavily. Like I legit felt like I failed my family. But the Lord always, the Lord always has a plan, and even though I didn't understand it then, I understand it now. Why things had to happen the way that it did. And I'm grateful, I'm grateful for the journey. I'm grateful for the tearing down and the building up, because it brought me where he needed me to be. And so I'm always going to praise the Lord for that, because, a lot of people, even I've said like, I don't know where I'd be if it wasn't for the Lord. And quite frankly, I don't want to know. I don't want to think about what would have happened. I'm just glad that it didn't happen and that the Lord saved me when he did. So praise the Lord for that. But moving out for me again was something that was really important to me. It was something that I always wanted. But me personally, I was scared to move out. I didn't think that I could move out, because I didn't feel like I was responsible. I didn't feel like I was financially responsible. And two, the enemy literally had planted this fear in my mind that if I had moved out of my mom's house, that I would go into this severe depression. So that thought, not realizing at the time that it was really demonic, that thought also kept me kind of like fearful of moving out. But it was something that I knew I had to do. I just didn't want to do it. So around this time last year, I was meeting with my pastors, and they had started helping me with my finances, like financial counseling. They helped me learn to save money. They were teaching me about budgeting, which was something that I wasn't taught. I didn't really know too much about it. So they were really helping me learn how to budget my finances and how to save money and things like that, which I'm very grateful for. And so I remember I was having this conversation with them, and I had told them that I wanted to move. It was something that I wanted to do, but I was scared. And living in New York City, it's really hard to move out on your own because New York City is just really expensive, especially when it comes to housing. It's really hard. I'll just say that. So I didn't really see, I wanted it, but I didn't know how it was going to happen because of the fact that in my mind, it was so hard to do, especially doing it on your own. So I remember my pastors, they were talking to me, and they were like, I forgot exactly what the words were, but it was basically, they were trying to tell me like, moving out for me is possible, but I need to have faith in God first, that it can actually happen. And putting in the effort, doing my part to prepare myself to move out. Otherwise, I'd, be staying where I'm at. If I wanted to move out the projects, I had to, prepare for that. I had to save up money to down payment. I had to look for housing. I had to put in the footwork to do it, but also recognizing that if it's the Lord's will, he will open the doors for that. And so that was something that I was genuinely praying to the Lord about, was like, Lord, I want to leave, but I don't know where to go. Like, I don't know how to move out on my own. And I'm looking for apartments on apartment.com, StreetEasy, Zillow. Like, I'm literally looking for all these apartments, and my budget just didn't, what I could afford, I just wasn't able to find it in New York City. And I remember one day I was at work, and I was looking at apartments, and I was talking to the Lord, and I was just feeling really discouraged because every time I found an apartment, I either didn't hear back. They were asking me questions that credit score and all these different things that like I wasn't comfortable releasing. I didn't know what to do. I didn't really know how to navigate the situation of moving out. And so I remember the Lord was telling me, tarry with me, just tarry with me. And originally I didn't know what that meant, but now looking back, like the Lord just wanted me to sit with him and just like relax, not stress over it. Just know that he's in control and that he's going to open the door. He's going to provide the opportunity for me to move out. I just had to trust in him. And so not even January, was it January? January of last year. So sorry, y'all, I mixed it up. So December of 2020, between November and December of 2023, forgive me, you guys. November of 2023 is when I started working with my pastors, my finances, and they basically encouraged me to like actually move out. And one thing about me was I was actually kind of scared. I didn't mention this. I was actually kind of scared to tell my mom this because for me, I realized sometimes I can get scared of saying things because if I actually reveal it, it makes it true. Like, it's like, okay, now I have to do this. Like, this is actually real. So me wanting to tell my mom, I was scared because I knew that, my mom wanted me to move with her, and then family members were trying to get me to move with my mom, and that just wasn't something that I felt like it was time for. I felt like it was legit time for me and my mom to live separately. Like, I just felt like it was that time for me to move out. I didn't feel like it was time for me to move into another apartment with my mom. Like, I just felt like, that it was coming to that time where, little birdie got to leave the nest, So I felt like, the bird had to leave the nest, so I had to leave, But but that's kind of what I was feeling. And I felt like admitting it to my mom. When I told her, I had in my head that she was going to react a totally different way. But when I told her, she was like, okay, sure. Like, and she told me, she was like, I think it's time that you move out. Like, it's time for you to do, like, move out on your own. And the fact that she was so cool about it, that she didn't react the way that I thought she was going to react, I was like, okay, it gave me that boost of like, okay, now I'm really doing this. I have to do this. I have to go through with this process. And so from November up until, this time that I moved out in July of 2024, I was saving up money for a down payment to move out. And not even just to move out, but just it was to move out. My pastors had done a separate account for me to save up money for moving expenses. So that way, if I got the call or whatever the case is, then I'd have the money to do it. I didn't have to wait. I had it on hand. So January of last year of 2024, I remember I was going to a friend's house. At this time, I was doing a video with a friend of mine, and I came to our house. I had come to our house before for Thanksgiving in November 2023, of course. And then I ended up coming back in January of 2024 to the same friend's house. And I remember we were talking about, she'd had some projects that she was doing, and we were talking a little bit. And my friend, she was engaged at the time, and she was getting ready to get married in about, I believe, March or May. It was May. Yeah, she was getting married in May. Or was it March? It was either March or May. She was moving out. She was moving out because she was getting married. And she looked at me and she was like, well, hey, I'm moving out. I have this room that's available. Do you want it? And originally I was like, yeah, I want it. Like, it was really like, I didn't have to, like, the Lord literally opened the door. Like, I really didn't realize it, but the Lord literally opened the door for me to move out. And I was like, yeah, I'll take it. Like, I'll do it. You're moving on to May. That gives me enough time. Excuse me. That gives me enough time to like save up the rest of the money, do what it is that I need to do. So I literally came home that day and I told my mom, I was like, Mom, I found an apartment. Like, my friend, she has a room that I can rent out. She has 2 other roommates, and they're in the faith. I think this is a good idea. It's in Queens. So in my mind, I was like, yeah, let's do it. It's cool. Because my goal was to move out May 1st. Mind you, prior to my friend telling me, I could have her room, I was literally, like I said, Zillow, apartments.com. I was literally looking everywhere. I was even looking out of state, like contemplating if I needed to move out of state, like just to afford something on my own. It was so hard. So when the Lord had opened up this opportunity for me to even rent out a room in a house with, 2 other roommates, I was like, okay, Lord, this has to be you. So I remember, I'm saving up the money and everything. And then the same friend comes to me maybe a month or 2 before we had planned to move out, which was May 1st. And she told me basically that, she and her husband, fiance at the time, had an apartment that they were looking at, but they had to put a pause on it because there were some things that was going on their end with the moving process. So I just had to wait, I just had to wait until, they were able to get that figured out. And so I had to basically not move out. My friend ended up not, the time that I wanted to move out, I wasn't able to move out basically. So it was really hard for me because, in my mind, I was planning to move out in May, and then it didn't happen. So I did feel a little bit discouraged. I had saved up all the money. I was ready to go. I told my mom that I was moving because my mom was waiting for me to leave, because then she was going to move out as well. So for me, it was like, I felt like I was basically keeping my mom from leaving, like, delaying my mother's move as well. But, even though I didn't understand it, I kept, pressing on. I was like, God, okay, I'm gonna trust you that if this is the apartment for me, you're gonna make it work. So I ended up leaving that apartment alone at the moment, and I had another friend of mine who was looking to move out. And so me and her got the idea, we're like, hey, let's just, well, I think it was more of me. I got the idea because I wanted to be out by May 1st. I had got the idea of like, hey, you know, you're looking for an apartment, I'm looking for an apartment. Why don't we just move out together? So we were looking for an apartment to move out together, but then things, I'll just say it was not in the Lord's will for us to move out together. It is what it is, right? And so I went back to the other friend who had the room available for me, and she was telling me, hey, I'm gonna move out in July. I'm gonna move out July. It's yours if you want it. So around maybe May or June, I don't remember the time, but after a while, after the first, you know, moving out with my friend didn't work out, I ended up having to look back at that apartment, even though I was still looking on different, I went to go view an apartment from Spare Room. It's an app that helps you like rent out rooms, so you have roommates but you're renting out a room. And I was renting out, looking at rooms and things like that. I was going with my mom, and my mom was like, no. So it was kind of like the Lord was literally like showing me like, no, this is the room that I had, that I originally spoke, had, you know, my friend had spoken to me about in January. This was literally where God wanted me to be. But because I was being impatient and I wanted to be out by May, I was looking everywhere else, and every other door, all these other doors kept closing, but this was the only door that stayed open, y'all. Let me tell you, this is the only door that stayed open, but every other door kept closing on me. So literally I went back to my friend, and she ended up moving out, and I moved in July 1st of 2024. Literally the man, my landlord, had like, you know, reached out to me, sent me the lease. I had the money to put down the down payment and first month's rent. Literally, I was able to solidify all of this within a week. I kid you not. So I had settled out to move out July 1st. And that's what I did. I signed the lease, put a down payment in. I moved out July 1st when my friend moved out of the room, and she moved. And ever since then, I've been here in this house. And it's really given me the opportunity to have a space to worship the Lord without having to worry about people walking past me in the living room, or without hearing screaming, or without a dog barking at 7 o'clock. And like, listen, y'all, I love my family, but we were crammed in a 3-bedroom apartment, so it was a little rough. But by the grace of God, he always provided. Even in that situation, he always made sure we had a roof over our head, clothes on our backs, food in the fridge, you know. But you know, we were all getting older, and we realized we all needed our own space. So, you know, it's always like humble beginnings, never forgetting where you came from, but always being grateful for where the Lord has brought you from, but also remembering and being thankful for, you know, being in that situation, because it taught me so much, as a young adult, as a young lady, just seeing the strength of a mother, a strong mother, taking care of 3 kids in the projects. It ain't easy. Not by the furthest, but I love my mom, and she really was so supportive in the whole process of me moving out. Yeah, so I love my mama. Love you, Mom, if you're watching this. But yeah, I moved out, and I moved into this room, this apartment, and it's been really good. Like, I decorated my apartment. I'm still in like the beginning stages. I've been here for almost excuse me, I moved in July, August, September, November, December, January, February. Wait, we're in February, right? So I've been here 7 months. I've been here 7 months, close to 8. And let me tell you, y'all, it's been a journey learning how to be on my own. Like, I felt like in my mind before I moved out, I really thought that I could do this because I lived upstate for 4 years while I was in school. So of course, you know, when you're in college, if you know, you go away for college, you live in your dorms by yourself, with the exception of having a roommate, you have to fend for yourself, washing your own clothes, you know, meal plan, or just cooking, like if you want to move off campus, paying bills, whatever the case is. But like, you're solely responsible for yourself. And so even though I had the financial support of my parents, I was still like low key, like somewhat of like independent in a way, because I did work, a little work study job on top of that, little cash, but my parents were really supporting me in college. But I was on my own. Like, I came in when I went to, I left when I when I wanted to. I didn't have to answer to nobody. So I really thought that I could do this. Except the only difference between college and moving out by yourself is that you can't come back home. Like, you can't live back at home. So I remember maybe like 3 days after I moved in, the first day I cried, like just giving thanks to the Lord, because like this was literally an answered prayer. Um, it was something that I genuinely wanted, but did not think that it was really gonna happen. And so I cried the first day out of pure joy and just praising the Lord. About the third day, I was in the grocery store. I forgot what was going on in that moment, but all I know is I just felt so emotional and I started crying. I genuinely started crying. I had been waking up in a house that was so quiet, no dogs, no nothing. My mom being like 20 minutes away at the time. And I was just like so scared. I was like, what am I doing? How am I gonna do this? Like, this is so, like, what did I do? Like, it was really like, what did I just do? Like, did I just move out of my parents' house? So it was just like, it was really hard for me the first like month or two. But like after a while, I got into a routine. I started going to work from here. I had a space to like really pray and read my word and worship. I cooked my own meals. Like, it took some adjusting for me to really adjust to like being literally on my own. But once, by the grace of God, once I got into a routine, it really helped me, especially getting to know my roommates more. It helped me a lot feel more comfortable about where I was. And I knew this was where God wanted me to be. And so I'm grateful, I'm thankful. And even so I found this journal, right? And so this was probably the first journal that I ever wrote in, about 2 years ago, 2.5 maybe. Because about 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago, I would say. My friend had told me that she had been journaling to God, and so I had got this idea, like, she was telling me like, God reads your journals, and I was like, really? And I was like, I didn't know that. So I used to journal before I was saved, but it wasn't consistent. But then I was like, wow, I can journal to God and he'll still read my journal. So I started journaling. And I remember I was going to an event for a connect group that my church has, and we were learning how to study the Bible using the SOAP method. Excuse me. Yeah, I'm sorry, a little phlegm. Using the SOAP method. And my connect group leader at the time, I remember he I remember he gave me a journal. And I don't know if it was for specifically because of like note taking, but like I don't remember why he gave me the journal, but excuse me guys, I don't know why he gave me the journal, but he gave me the journal. So this was like I believe this was the first journal, either the first or the second journal that I started writing in. This may have been my second, because I cannot find any of my other journals, but I could be wrong. But this may be my first journal. I think it is my first journal, you guys. I think it is, because I have so many different journals that I have over the past 2 years of journaling to God. And I was looking at the first journal entry. I found it in my storage. And this is dated in May 27th in 2023. And this was my first summer being saved. I was at the Brooklyn Bridge Park, because I didn't live too far from there. And I love, one thing about me, you guys, I love being by the water. I love being somewhere where there's a scenic view and I'm able to just relax and read my word and study and write to the Lord, pray to the Lord. Like, I've just always been someone who's just been very much loving of like scenic views. And so I remember I went to the Brooklyn Bridge Park to journal and study the word with the Lord. And I called it like my date times with the Lord. I would just get up and I would just go to Brooklyn Bridge Park because it was like a 40-minute bus ride at the time, train ride, forgive me. And I would just go by myself and I would just sit there and watch the water, do Bible study, pray, talk to the Lord, walk the Brooklyn Bridge after that, and then go home. And I was cleaning my room just the other day and I found this journal that I wrote in. And I was going through it because I think I was having a really hard day this day that I found the journal. And I was going through it, and literally I was talking about moving out and my concerns for moving out and what I wanted and what I was looking for, and just the journey of, moving out and what that looked like. And I highlighted, how I highlighted in the journal where God was beginning to speak to me about myself, about where he's called me to be, about what I was feeling. He was just really speaking to me this day. And I'm sure there's plenty more journals in there, journal entries in here, or journals in there that I probably talked about moving out, and I have to probably go find that somewhere. But it's just, looking back, it's literally answered prayers. Literally, I'm writing down, talking to God about moving out and trusting him and continuing to save in faith despite not being able to move out when I wanted to, or despite not moving out, with the people that I had intended. God still had a plan for me, and he still had a door open for me to move here. And, now I'm here, and I genuinely give all glory to God for that, because I could not have done this by myself. I could not have found this apartment by myself. This was literally God's plan. This was God's whole, this is all God. Like I legit take no credit for nothing that God does in my life, because I know that it's him. I know that it's only him that could have created these opportunities, that could have opened these doors for me to walk through. And I'm just grateful to be here. And since I've been here, I feel like I've grown a lot as a young adult, as a young woman. I feel like my relationship with God, having that privacy to cry to the Lord, to, basically talk to the Lord about what I'm going through without feeling like someone's listening in on me. Like this, having that privacy and that intimacy with the Lord that I've been able to, create in this room, that I wasn't able to create fully, at my previous house. It just shows like God literally listens. He answers our prayers. And if we just continue to wait and be patient on the Lord, he is making a way for us to get where he knows we desire to be, but it's as long as it's within his will and in his time. And so I just wanted to share this to encourage somebody who is waiting on the Lord for a promise, who's waiting on the Lord for a breakthrough, who's waiting on the Lord to open the door for them, whether it's for a job, whether it's for education, whether it's for marriage, whether it's for a child, whether it's for a community, or even if it's for God to open up a door for you to move out into a new building, a new house, a new apartment, a new location. I just want to encourage you that like God hears your prayers. God is with you, and continue to trust in the Lord. Continue to trust in what he said. God is not a man who would lie. Like everything that he says, if he said it, he's going to do it. But we have to be patient, and we have to continue to trust in the Lord. And we have to be mindful of even thinking back to the times where God has told you something and he has come through. It's like, if God came through in that situation, what makes you think that he won't come through for you for this? And when I have moments where I'm struggling, even this season has been hard, but when I have moments where I'm really, really struggling and I'm really sitting here trying to think about what I'm grateful for, I literally am reminded that I am sitting in an answered prayer. I wake up every day in an answered prayer. I come home to an answered prayer every single day. And so I just want to encourage somebody to, you know, just trust in the Lord, trust in his promises, trust in his word, and remind yourself of the things that he's already done and what he's already answered in your prayer time. And just be of good courage. Be of good courage and know that God's will always come to pass. So thank you for joining my video. I hope this was a blessing. I hope this was an encouragement. I hope this maybe was even confirmation for somebody. And I love you guys, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, night, evening, like afternoon, wherever this is reaching you or wherever you guys are watching this from. I just pray that this was a blessing to you guys. And so I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.